This is Andi Purewal of Boxing Social in association with Betfred. We're in Leeds and I'm joined by Matchroom Boxing's Frank Smith. Frank, as always, firstly, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Back from LA, jet lag out the way, and looking forward to a big weekend in Leeds.
I was going to say, Eddie sent you out to LA, and then he's been out here enjoying the UFC card on Saturday night.
I know, with his mate Dana. They're like best mates. I was always going, actually. So I was going when McKinson was fighting Ortiz, and then obviously we weren't sure what was happening. Flew out there on Thursday. It was good, that wasn't ideal for McKinson. We had Ramla Ali on the card as well, but he got the win. He accepted 15 different opponents. The fight wasn't that entertaining, to be completely honest with you. But the most important thing after the week he'd had was get the win. His opponent changed 20 or 12 hours before the weigh-in, 14 hours before the weigh-in. So, it was consistently changing. He'd focused on one thing to go in there and fight Virgil Ortiz and ended up fighting someone completely different. So, but look, main focus was get a win, and good for him and Ramler as well, who had a good win, good stoppage on the card as well. So, good trip.
How close, if at all, was Michael to actually not being able to fight on this past weekend? And also, can you just tell me more about the opponent who was 30 pounds over what was the originally contracted weight, which Michael had agreed with Virgil?
So obviously the Virgil news came out. Golden Boy, we have to say a big thank you to Robert Diaz and Golden Boy as well for the work they put on. When first found out Virgil was out, I thought it was unlikely that he'd still box, being completely honest with you. Then we found an opponent who was approved, confirmed, we announced. He then arrived, did his medicals, and he weighed in on Thursday evening and was 179 pounds. But he knew what the weight he had to make was. He just, I guess, lied and said that he could have made it. Very strange. At that point, obviously, we knew that the fight wasn't going to go ahead as it was, and Martin replaced him. So that Martin was actually there. He was there in LA for the days before. I'd guess whether they were in case someone had pulled out, because they had the other welterweight. They had obviously Cobbs and Rocha on the card as well. So maybe I think he could have always been there just in case someone needed to step in. So he made weight fine. The fight was then made at 147, which was perfect for Mikey. Mikey came in at 146. So it was the key was, like I say, just making sure he fought. And earlier on in the week, I didn't think that was likely.
What is going to be next for Michael? Is it going to be to try to make that Virgil Ortiz fight once again, or do you think that one might not happen now because Virgil might look at other routes? What is the most likely outcome for McKinson?
I thought that Ortiz wouldn't come back to 147 again, but they're saying, I spoke to Manny Robles, they were like, no, there's not a problem with the weight, he just was unwell and he'll come back he'll fight at 147 again. So that's definitely a fight that we'll look at with Mikey. Maybe the Rocha, Rocha after his win against Blair Cobbs, maybe that's a fight we look at as well. He got in the ring afterwards. So let's see how things play out. We want to deliver a big opportunity for him. Hopefully, touch wood, we can deliver one of those.
Moving away from that onto this week, we're here in Leeds, as I mentioned earlier on. Kiko Martinez, Josh Warrington 2. Frank, not a rematch which I thought many in the boxing world thought we'd see, especially for an IBF world title. What do you expect to see in this bout in comparison to what we saw those years ago when they previously shared the ring?
I think it's mad. Like, so many people write people off in this sport, and I remember actually speaking to you about the Kid Galahad fight, and you were just you were saying what everyone was saying. The fans were saying this is a terrible fight, blah blah. And then we saw what happened there, and it's that experience that Kiko Martinez has that has kept him so relevant in this game for so long. Josh Warrington's come back obviously from the Maurizio Lara loss. The last fight didn't end the way we wanted it to end. No one wanted it to end that way. We had a sold out Headingley Stadium. Could have wanted more, but this is the opportunity for him to go in there and become a world champion again. Kiko's still got a lot left to offer. He showed that against Kid Galahad. People wrote him off, but he went in there and did a job. And I think that's partly the problem with boxing is people get written off after one or two losses. He's shown that you can stay relevant for all these years. Again, it's like Derek Chisora. He stayed relevant. People are still going to watch him. He's had 12 losses. So I think it's going to be an entertaining fight, and the roof's going to come off at the first direct on Saturday. And great to be back there as well, because it's been a long time since we were in Leeds, actually in the arena.
Frank, just one more on that one, and I've asked Josh, I've asked Sean as well about this. Josh has had some tough fights during his career, some gruelling fights, especially the first Lara one. Granted, the second one didn't go in for too long because of the cut, but it was just starting to warm up. Those types of fights, and I'm not a fighter, but listening to others talk, they can take a lot out of you. Do you think that's something which we might see on Saturday night, if maybe those fights have started to wear Josh down and maybe his punch resistance might not be what it was previously?
Look, he obviously, the Lara fight was a shock to everyone, and we've seen since then what Lara's gone on to do. You know, we saw the knockout in San Diego a few weeks ago. So I just think it's amazing. People get written off, don't they? After one, after everything he'd done, and then it's like one loss. Oh, he's finished. So I think you just let's wait and see Saturday night. It's going to be an exciting fight. Kiko Martinez has been through those tough fights over the years as well. So I just think it's going to make for a real entertaining fight. And I don't think you can say just because he's had one loss and the way it finished that's him over with. I don't see how you can judge someone's career just on that one night.
Frank, last time we spoke, it was just before the Lee Wood, Michael Conlon barn burnout up in Nottingham, is further down south from Leeds. Since then, obviously, there's been a lot of talk as to what's next. Thankfully, Michael's okay, first and foremost. Speaking to Josh earlier, he said be happy to face Lee at the City Ground. Is that the most logical fight now, knowing that Josh is willing to do so? If he overcomes Kiko Martinez, Josh Warrington, Lee Wood at the City Ground in the summer.
Yeah, look, massive unification, that one. Obviously Lee's got the opportunity as well. Does he look at the Conlon rematch again? Everyone would be interested in that. It was one of the best fights we've ever seen. So there's lots of options for all the guys. Definitely something we'll look at though. Josh is fully focused on what he's got ahead of him on Saturday night. But Lee's always shown that he's up for a fight. He'll take on any challenge. So definitely a fight of interest for us. But lots of big opportunities there as well. But can you imagine that at the City Ground with 15,000 travelling from Leeds, 15,000, probably have 35,000 in there. It would be sensational.
I mean, Frank, it's an interesting one with Michael Conlon because there's no doubt that people would love to see that rematch again. It was so entertaining for all who watched. And it's arguably just as big as what a fight with Josh Warrington would be now because of what we saw in the first fight. Is it something which will be considered a potential rematch, or is it more so try and make those fights with not just the other matchroom fighters, but with Josh if he was to hold the world title? Yeah,
look, Josh against Lee, great fight. Maybe you do Josh against Lee, Conlon has a comeback fight, and then that's a fight for down the road as well. Now, that's another massive fight. Conlon against the winner of Josh and Lee. So it's exciting because it's like a roundabout, like a tournament essentially that you could create over the next year or two of huge fights that would sell out all their respective football stadiums. So it would be, it's lots to look forward to. And then you got Maurizio Lara in the mix as well. He's high up the IBF rankings as well. So yeah, there's lots to look forward to there.
Just moving on with the card, Maxie Hughes and Ryan Walsh. What are your thoughts on it, Frank, as we're only a couple of days away from what many see as a very good fight? Really good fight,
and Maxie is obviously, I think this is the first time he's been 100% focused on boxing with no job as well. So he's had such a the story he's had within the sport and what he's already done is quite amazing. He's going in there defending his IBO title. The Walsh brothers, great talents in the sport, and it's going to be a real exciting fight, that one. You've obviously got Ebony Bridges as well, challenges for her first world title. No, sorry, not first world title, second world title. So she's got a huge following here in Leeds. Massive Leeds fan as well. Sky Nicholson makes her second, as her second fight after her debut in San Diego, and we'll keep her busy as well after this. Get out, get a good win on Saturday, and get back out quickly. You got Dalton Smith fighting Moylett, which is a really good fight. Dalton's a real talent, and I think comes through this. We're looking to challenge for the British title in the summer. We've got all that. We're working towards all that now. Undercard, Callum French on there as well. Marley Wright and Corey Regan. So it's a stacked card, top to bottom. It's going to be some atmosphere in there throughout the night.
Frank, just on Dalton, obviously we've seen Sam Maxwell's vacated that British title now. So what is the most likely outcome of it all for Dalton?
We've worked with so the Bald, we put forward a fight against Hakeem Ennis Brown So hopefully that will be sanctioned, and that's the next step for him. And he's moving very quickly. Dalton is and Grant, they want to move quickly, which is great to see. And get through. Look, he's not looking past Saturday night because Moylet's not an easy fight. So get through that, and then we'll push forward and hopefully get that announced soon for the summer.
Frank, away from this, touch on a few other topics. Obviously, we know what's going on with Ukraine. As always, our thoughts are with them. But Vasyl Lomachenko seems to be willing to stay there, obviously fighting to protect his country. Opens the door for Devin Haney to potentially face George Kambosos. According to reports, that one is on the table now. Are you confident that one will be announced soon or could get over the line soon?
Yeah, look, we're working through the proposal now. Hopefully later this week, early part of next week, we'll have some good news. It's a fight that we've wanted to make for a long time. Devin wants to fight the best, and he wants to become the undisputed champion. This takes away all questions as to who's undisputed. There can be arguments about he's franchise, this, that, the other, but let's leave no question. And Devin's willing to go to Australia for that fight. One thing about Devin Haney, he'll take on any challenge, and it would be, after seeing what Kambosos did against Lopez, for him to go back and have this homecoming fight, I can only imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like. So hopefully we can make that happen because it's a massive fight.
What size stadium are you guys considering for that fight, Frank?
It's not obviously the Kambosos and Ludabella and the team and the local team are working through it now. So they're putting the plans together for that. So they will be able to follow an update on that.
Ruiz Jr., Derek Chisora, Eddie said last week that he'd made an offer to try and make that fight. Doesn't seem likely, he said. What can you update us on?
I think Andi Ruiz is looking to fight Luis Ortiz now, is the latest, or the gossip I've heard. But Ruiz against Derek Chisora is a massive fight. I think that would sell out the O2. Ruiz after what, the fights he had with AJ, and Derek Chisora, constant entertainment. So, I think that would be a huge fight if we can make it happen, but I'm not sure it will.
Obviously, Luis Ortiz was a name mentioned to potentially step into a face-AJ for Alexander Usyk. Fight doesn't go ahead, and there was an interim bout. What is the latest again with Anthony Joshua? We've seen that Alexander Usyk, he didn't actually... I want to word this carefully because I saw Iggy Klimas' comments, but Alexander Usyk didn't need permission granted by the Ukrainian government because of the children he has, so he's able to travel out. So where do things currently stand with that fight?
Look, ultimately our aim is completely, let's try and make the rematch happen. It's AJ's sole focus. He wants to get in there and get his belts back. Obviously mindful of the situation, and as you said, thoughts are with everyone affected, and it's much bigger than boxing. So we're waiting to see some clarity. I think the rematch will happen, but if it doesn't and we have to delay it to a later date and he takes an interim fight, then we'll do that. But like I say, main focus for everyone is to get the rematch on.
How confident are you that the rematch happens?
It's every day you're seeing different reports, so I think this is things are moving so quickly here. It's hard to put a percentage on it, but that is our focus right now, is to make the rematch happen. And then if not, we're working on things in the background as we always do. It's our job, so that we can get an interim fight sorted, because the key for us is to make sure AJ's active and gets out in June.
That was going to be something I was going to ask about. Have you guys made contact with those potential stepping opponents like the Otto Varlins, or previously Luis Ortiz was mentioned? I saw Adam Morley last week and mentioned Joe Joyce to him, and he said that from what he had been told, that Alexander Usyk rematch was most likely for AJ, but he had a brief chat with Freddie 258. So have you opened any form of discussions with certain fighters, with certain teams?
No concrete proposals, because there's nothing there to propose. Until we know the position we're in, we have to wait and see. Everyone's aware that there's opportunities out there, that if the Usyk fight doesn't happen, that there's an opportunity there. So, I think that's something, as I say, once we get clarity, and I think that will be in the next couple of days, then we can work from there.
I just want to get your thoughts on some comments I've seen from Mr. Eddie Hearn, I don't want to say your boss, your partner, your buddies, technically. Just get your thoughts on this around the Tyson Fury Dillian Whyte fight. So I've seen that he said there's just loads of different problems to resolve. I don't think it's going to affect the fight, but to be honest with you, I'm so glad I'm not involved. Hopefully they both get in the ring and give everybody a great fight. He mentioned something like that in passing to me a couple of weeks ago in Nottingham too. These problems, whatever they may be, even if they may not affect the fight ultimately, are they that much of an issue if they're being brought up? Do you know what they could be?
I think that Frank Warren's spoken openly about what the things that have been going. I've seen multiple interviews with him where he's talking about ring size tickets, all these bits and pieces. Like, I think there's tons of different things, but that's something they're all working through. Like Eddie said, I think the fight happens. I can't see the fight not happening, but there are a number of things. It's strange because it doesn't. How long have we worked with Dillian-Whyte, and it's easy, and we've never had a problem with him. Great relationship and delivered so much for him. So I don't know why it's so difficult, but it's not really our business.
Away from that one, once again Frank announced the Parker Andrade fight for May 21st at Pride Park. First, just your thoughts on seeing that one at Pride Park?
Decent fight, yeah, really decent fight, and we've worked with Andrade for a long time, but I think it's going to be good. Him moving up to 168 for that interim title. In terms of Pride Park, I don't know much about Pride Park. I've never been to Pride Park. I don't think I've ever been to Derby, if I'm completely honest with you. But they were saying it holds something like 40,000. I can't personally see it selling that many tickets. I mean, I don't know how many tickets Derby sell for a football match week in, week out. Do you know?
I think currently they've had some really good numbers around the 30,000 mark, but obviously they're in difficult times at the minute, so the team's just trying to get fans getting behind the team, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, good luck to him. Good fight. So let's see how it goes.
There is a show clash there with you guys, with Richards Bawatsi. Will there be any types of discussions to try and make sure that the main events at least will be on at different times, or will it just be a matter of watch whatever you want to if you're a fan?
I think you've also got a show on Sky that night as well. You've got a boxer tournament as well. So you've got 3 shows on the 3 different platforms. Look, I think it's always going to be difficult to work to, we're competitors. Like, the truth is we're all competitors, aren't we? We're ultimately we all want what's good for the sport. I'm sure if we all had a choice not to clash with shows, we would, because it could take 1% of the audience away, which you don't want. But everyone's doing so many shows. You've got 4 promoters really, 5 promoters in the UK really who are doing a number of shows. That's us, that's Boxer, that's Frank Warren, Pro Bellum and Wasserman, all doing shows now on various broadcasters. So I think it's going to be near impossible for us not to clash. So something we probably we don't want to do, but it is going to happen. So the good thing is about DAZN, you can watch it on your phone, you can watch it on your laptop, you can watch it on your TV. So maybe you can watch 2 at once.
Don't like to make things so easy for us guys covering your shows, do you, Frank? That's obviously a message to everybody else as well. Final one, obviously, you've got Riakpur Juma, which also clashes with your show this weekend. Again, I suppose you've kind of answered it previously, but any kind of discussions so that the main events didn't clash?
No.
Straightforward. But that was going to be the last one. In rather leaving on a different note, Conor Benn, obviously Chris Van Heerden was announced. Critics come out in full force for that fight. I'm sure you've seen that, and a lot of people would like to see Conor step up now. What have you made of those criticisms?
Look, I think Conor Benn is still learning. He's still young. He's still 25 years old, and it's just the fact that he's been around for so long and started so early on in his career. I think Chris Van Heerden's great for experience for him to keep learning. Ultimately Conor would go in there and fight anyone. Conor would go in there and fight Terence Crawford tomorrow. But we have to do things at the right pace. And we've seen what happens when the public overlook or have an opinion on a fight. We saw it with Kid Galahad against Kiko Martinez, a perfect example of experience going in there. And, these fights are where the guys will learn. So, look, ultimately, like I say, he'd go in there tomorrow and fight anyone. Kell Brook, Amir Khan, Terence Crawford, all these names. But I think this fight makes a lot of sense and keeps him developing, keeps him learning.
We saw David Avanesian blast out Oscari Metz this past weekend within a round, Frank. Is that fight possible, Conor versus David?
I think about 600 people in the venue saw it as well, didn't they? I just think David Avanesian's not very relevant, personally. So I don't think that's a fight that makes any sense. Conor wants the big fights. the likes of Kelbrick. I think even Amir Khan's a good fight for him. Still now. So I don't think so.
Well, Frank, we'll leave it there now. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. I'm sure there's other people waiting to speak to you as well. Thank you for speaking to me in Boxing Social.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you.
Cheers, Frank. I don't know what... Oh, mate.
You could put that out on there.
It's actually filming still, so...